Welcome back to another episode of Void City Reviews. I am Dan.
And I'm Toast.
And today we are going to be looking at a McFarlane Toys Gold Label Year 2 Batman figure. This was, I believe, a Target exclusive. If you could ever get your hands on it, it was supposed to come out months and months and months ago, and it was canceled for so many people, myself included. This is actually the second time I pre-ordered it, and the second time it had no date. And then it just randomly showed up one day, and Target even took $10 off. I'm happy they did that because this figure is terrible. Let's jump right in and look at why.
So he's part of why the pose he's in.
He's going to stay in that pose because I'm afraid if I move him any further, he will end up broken like so many of the ones I've seen photos of online.
He's very crotch forward.
Well, he's going to fall down otherwise.
Okay.
He does nothing but fall down.
That was my question.
He falls down repeatedly. The peg holes in his feet are a little bit too big for the stand that he comes with, which is not a problem I've really had with any other of my McFarlane figures. I have a few. Haven't had this problem with any of the rest of them.
Before we started filming, anytime you would move this figure, the stand would stay where it is, and you would move the figure.
Yes.
And I've never seen it just not attached like that.
Yeah, and he would just fall right down, even regardless sometimes. He has very warped legs from being in a package, I think way too long, and in a pose he wasn't meant for. So let's just get right down to it. I have no idea how anyone in the entire world got this figure to work with this big giant plastic cape he comes in that replicates the art from the comic that is very specific. It's very, very McFarlane thing to do here. It's a lot like a lot of the old Spawn cover figures where they would be made to basically replicate one specific pose. No matter how articulated they were meant to be in one pose displayed one specific way.
Right.
That's kind of what's happening here with this cape and this background that you're supposed to use.
It looks very nice.
It looks very nice in photographs.
This is maybe the best stand that he's done.
Oh yeah, it definitely, it's painted well and it fits the scene. That's very nice. I mean, you get some cool detail on this stand. I'll show that off. There's a whole bunch of cool rocks and gravestones, and they all have different members of the Bat family named upon them. So not only is it like Batman's parents, but there's like Selina Kyle and Jason Todd.
That was a surprise because I don't think they showed really details of this just from the pre-order.
Yeah, I expected maybe his parents, but just seeing everyone else, all these crumpled tombstones. Barbara Gordon's on there, Tim Drake. There's Thomas Wayne, Martha Wayne, Jason Todd, Selina Kyle's back here. So
we're just missing Dick, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I guess Nightwing made it out alive. Good for him. Pretty cool. But there's a blank tombstone back here, so who knows? Maybe. Anyway, so that's nice. A little bit misleading in the packaging though, because in the box, this is packaged so that it's set up kind of like that. So it looks like it'd be centered over the stand, and it kind of makes sense. You can see the tombstone all right up in front there, prominently displayed. Looks nice. Like this, it makes a lot of sense. Looks like it should fit together good. Might be kind of nice. So it's actually supposed to go together like this, with the tombstones behind him, and he's kind of, there's actually a post. Josh, you can kind of see in there. I don't even want to get into this. This whole thing is ridiculous.
That's a chore to get in there.
It's a chore to get in there, and there's no instructions.
Right.
It comes with no instructions on how this is supposed to fit. I had to look it up afterwards.
It comes as 3 pieces.
Yeah.
And you have to put 2 of them together to sort of...
and figure out where they fit inside of here. And this whole thing is a glued together one piece that is actually... Another problem with this is it feels very brittle. This plastic feels very cheap, and it gets stress lines in it very easily, so don't bend it at all unless you want a big white line through this plastic that will just show up, or if you just want to snap it in half. There's parts of this where it literally feels like if I pushed hard enough with my finger will just sink through this plastic and make a hole in it. My theory is that a lot of these things, I think these things sat on a cargo ship for months in the ocean, in weather they weren't meant to, getting hot and cold, whatever. They're just, this whole thing feels like it was stressed in a way it shouldn't have been. That's besides the point. So you get this thing put together, the cape goes on like right there, so the tombstone's hidden behind it and everything's like that. But the fun part is that the way this is on here now is it's now leaning back and it's off to the side. So it's not weighted very well. This stand is very light. There's no weight to this thing whatsoever. The cape weighs twice as much as the stand does.
Sure.
And that's without the figure in it. Now, if you pop the arms off the figure and put the figure up in here, if you can get him to fit, which he doesn't, I don't care what anybody says. If you got him to fit in here, you did something that changes how this was actually meant to be set up, and I haven't figured that set up yet. You get him in there, this whole thing then just goes like that because it's back and to the left and it's not centered over it whatsoever. It doesn't work. There's pegs on the bottom here, right in the middle of the sidewalk. There's like one here, one here, one here, and one here. Well, each foot has one hole in it by his heel, so that's strange already. Tells me that he's meant to be in two different poses on this thing. Well, if you just stand him up with his cloth cape in the middle of here, that's fine. Stand him however you want, whatever, because he's unencumbered. He can do whatever he wants. With this thing, there is a hole right there, and this stand that comes down, this has to be in one place on here, meaning the figure inside has to be in one place lined up inside here. When you do that, his feet don't line up with any one of these pegs whatsoever. None of them. I'll try to take a photo of myself standing in the position he ends up in inside this cape in order to get his feet to line up with these pegs. And when you see the position you got to put him in to get him to that, it doesn't work, is what I'm trying to say. You cannot get him to stand in a way where his feet line up with these pegs in a human position of standing that makes any sense whatsoever. This does not work with this figure. I wish it did. I wanted to display him on the shelf with this thing. This thing looks awesome.
It looks awesome.
In photos, it looks great. It does kind of have the airbrushing that like the Kickstarter Spawn cape had, where there's just kind of dark blacks thrown in different places.
This one, most of it I think looks pretty good, but
yeah, it's not as bad or random as Spawn, but it does. There are some shadows where it's just like
this might be overspray from doing this, and then there's another one here, so there's some shadow for going up in there, and I think this is then overspray from doing this shadow that's going up into that crease. But I think like it's mostly in the right place. It's in the creases. It doesn't really make sense around the shoulders, but it kind of makes sense.
It's a little bit better.
It is,
but
it's pretty good.
Then there's still some issues with this cape too, even aside from it not fitting. Even if it did fit, the way it was in the package, now there's a split here in the neck, so I'd have to somehow fix this to be more like that, so it actually line up correctly on the figure itself. Otherwise, it's just kind of sticking off his chest, and it just ruins the whole look of the piece. I'd have to probably dip this whole thing into some boiling water, and again, I'm afraid to do that. This plastic just feels like it's been stressed already. I don't know. It feels like it's been out in the sun, like on someone's dashboard in the sun for like a week. That's how this feels. And yeah, I wish it had come with instructions on how this dumb post setup was supposed to work. I don't know how you figured that out with YouTube, but I had to look up on YouTube how to get this thing to fit in there.
It seemed to only go one way, so I just stuck it in, but that was like
well, with the thing assembled already and glued together, like it was hard to even see how that goes, because I mean it's up in these folds, like
it's a difficult fit because there's not a whole lot of room inside.
No, and there are like 3 slots on the top of the peg, and there are 3 slots up in here that I guess if you were really looking you could eventually see, but they're again hidden up in this fold, which is glued together, and you can't. So I don't know how you got that in there, but either way, I've never been able to get it to work with the figure. So, getting back to this figure, I have him now displayed with his other alternate cape. He comes with a cloth cape, and that's really easy to put on there. His head,
which I think looks pretty good.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised. So his head is all just one big giant piece there, and his cloth cape goes in there like that. So it is on its own sort of piece. And there's 2 plugs that go in the back. I think this plugs right on there and gives him his cowl, and then his head just plugs into that. So that's pretty easy to do.
Okay.
Fits right in there. That's nice. You can have it be down around him if you want. I mean, it's a pretty substantially large cape.
That is big. It's a lot of fabric.
Yeah, that's a pretty big old cape. So it can be all around him if you want. Whatever. Like I said, I'm not going to move his arms right now. I'm kind of freaked out about doing that because every photo I've seen of this figure from anyone else having him, it appears that his bicep swivel snaps off pretty easily. So I'm trying to be very careful with those. It happens to a lot of people because, again, to put him in the plastic cape, you have to take his arms off. So this figure actually comes with his arms separately in like their own little plastic bags stuck up on the wall, and he has to go in there like that. That's the only way he'll fit.
Which is funny.
Inside of the plastic cape is with no arms on. And one of the things I had hoped to do with this plastic cape was maybe if I could find a second one, I wanted to spray it red and use it for Spawn. Well, then you'd have to take Spawn's arms off also. But it'd be just a display piece at that point. Yeah, so his arms come off. This is the torso from the new Three Jokers Batman figure.
Which is bulky.
Yeah. It's a pretty big torso. It's kind of along the same lines for Batman. Like if you were to compare the Detective Comics 1000 Batman to this, it's almost the same as Action Comics 1000 Superman versus Superman's after that, like Rebirth, where he's got the much bulkier chest.
Right.
So it does have that. The paint application on his logo, it could be better. It's a little bit off. There's also a little bit of the plastic you can see where they pop this little logo piece out of the mold. There's a little plastic along the edge. I'll have to trim there, which means I'll probably have to touch up the paint a little bit, but I might just end up doing that anyway. It is what it is. But like I said, it is the torso from Three Batmans. He does come with 2 alternate hands, which actually have alternate gloves, which is sort of interesting. So they have detail on them, whereas these hands are more like in line with the art style at the time, where they were just plain, whereas Three Jokers Batman has the more ribbed design and the knuckles on his gloves. So I don't know why they needed the alternate hands necessarily for this figure.
The only accessory smaller.
The only accessory it comes with is this ginormous Batarang, which is just ridiculous in every sense. It doesn't fit in his hands. I mean, it fits in the sense that, yeah, you can get it in that hole, but it doesn't hold the Batarang really whatsoever. It's just terrible.
No, it definitely does not.
Yeah. So, it's weird. You can almost trigger hand, but I mean, the thing is so big, it just flops right out of there. It's a ridiculous accessory.
Oh, yes.
He also has, and this has been pointed out by some people, if this were supposed to be Batman Year 2, he should have had the same boots as Detective Comics 1000 Batman with the points in the front. These are not the correct boots for this character or this design or this era. So that's kind of interesting. They should have the upwards point on them. They don't. Gloves have the giant fins on them from the art style back then. A little bit bent, but those can be fixed by just dipping them in hot water. That'll fix that problem right away. One thing we both noticed is that the pins for his lower arms are the wrong color. Right. Why couldn't those have been blue? I will never understand.
I think it's a size thing. So I think the lower bicep and the upper forearm are probably the same width, and they only cast it once.
And you wanted to save some money. I get it.
But also, these gloves are just painted on. There's no sculpt edge to that.
Right.
Which is kind of disappointing.
But then the paint is also on the elbow piece as well, in like the elbow joint area. So if you can paint that, why can't you give me blue pegs on a $50 gold label McFarlane figure?
The other thing that I noticed is he's got black pins for the feet in a very blue foot. So
are they black or are they just because they're metal?
Well, maybe, but my point is...
Yeah, they stand out.
Yeah, that stands out to me too. So I like the look with the cloth cape.
Yeah, me too, which is I'm surprised at. I had not thought I was going to do anything with that cloth cape at all. But once the plastic cape turned out to be unusable in every single way possible, kind of just had to. That was another thing I wanted to point out on the bicep here. You can see...
What's that?
That looks... I don't know.
It looks like a tool gouge.
It kind of does. Yeah, so mine has a little bit of damage there. That's nice. Maybe when putting the pins in, someone messed up. I don't know. I could probably sand that off of there maybe, but it's just another thing that I'll have to fix on him. where buyer beware maybe on these guys, especially being a bit more premium figure. It just seemed like I don't get why the quality seems to go down. It's like they think if we give you more accessories, the figure doesn't have to be as nice. I'd rather just have the nicer figure, to be honest, myself. I would have been fine without extra hands and a big dumb batarang that makes no sense.
This has recently gone back up for pre-order. So they are doing,
Yes.
I'm guessing, a second wave? Second release?
Either a second wave, second release, or they just finally got their initial shipments and know how much they have now. Yeah, I'm thinking, I don't know, because this pin doesn't even seem like it's in all the way. This one, I know it's not snapped in all the way through the other side. So I can actually see it's not through all the way. So I'm going to have to heat this guy up to put his pin in all the way. That's probably why his arm feels so loose. Yeah, I don't know what happened with the QC on this figure. Or just, I was very excited for this one. I don't know why. I usually don't even like blue Batman, but I was excited for this figure for a customization standpoint and just for I thought I'd make a cool display piece.
He's disappointing.
Yeah, he is disappointing, and the one part that I thought I wouldn't like of him turned out to be the only part I do like, which is his cloth cape. Even that, you do have to kind of sometimes find a nicer pose to put him in. It's a little bit strange sometimes, but
it's not a wired cape.
No, it's not at all. I think that the cloth could have been maybe a little bit thinner. I do have a fabric I use for my black Batman capes that's a little bit thinner than this, and it drapes better and it folds better over the shoulders, but whatever.
Who wants to stand again?
Yeah, I did, because it does not stay on. But yeah, so there's this figure is gonna be the death of me. Nope. I think that says it all about this guy right there. Target, I still don't think Target had too much to do with this one. I think McFarlane maybe dropped the ball on this guy a little bit, and then I think shipping woes may have been part of the other problem. At least I hope. But this does appear to be less well assembled than previous figures.
I don't like how it looks like his hip is popping out from his underwear.
Yeah, that was another aspect of being in the package, because his legs come inside that cape. They're basically like squished out like that, because that's how they have to be. Again, anyone tells me differently, you're lying. You're lying to yourself and you're lying to me. Don't do it. But yeah, so that happens.
Yeesh.
So that's not good. What that results in is getting a piece that's a little bit stretched and kind of strange. So this whole thing, I'll probably have to give him the hot water bath and try to reshape him back to his original form. But that's why that looks terrible right there, is because it was held in that shape for months in a cargo container on a ship. And I'm hoping it's not more permanent, but it looks like that. I don't know, that might be partially deformed forever. But cloth cape, you can just put it in front of that and not have to see it.
Yep.
So that's good. So maybe we'll just do that from now on, and he'll just stand like this.
Oof. My Hush Batman, I've usually got like the cape draped over half of him, and then the other half is exposed.
Yeah, that's what I would ideally do with this guy. I would have had a batarang in his hand, but good thing I have a whole bucket full of McFarlane accessories. I had someone just recently say that there's no way I have a big old box full of McFarlane hands.
I almost replied to that guy. I'm like, I've got to have a bag just of heads.
Yeah.
And I had to upgrade from a snack size bag to a sandwich size bag. That day, I upgraded. If you see other customizer videos, there's just a pile of parts in the background.
Yeah. There's usually parts or bins or containers, tackle boxes. Like,
my wife was just talking about, she wasn't talking about a tackle box. She was talking about like a bead drawer system.
I've been thinking of something similar to that, but I thought I'd run out of room real quick because they're all so small, like little containers. Like, I would need bigger stuff. I always think of in Toy Story 2, the guy who repaired Woody when the guy stole Woody and was going to sell him as the whole collection of toys, and they needed to obviously paint his foot again, touch up the details on his face, re-sew his arm back on, whatever, and the guy opens up this whole giant customization kit, and it's like the greatest action figure customization kit ever. Every time I think of that movie, I just think of that one scene. I'm like, I want that guy's custom kit. Look at all those paints. He has like his little airbrush. Yeah, so that's where we stand on this figure. Pretty disappointing, unfortunately.
I did not buy this one. I didn't care about the giant cape. I didn't care about the price tag. I don't even really care about the figure, which I think is, again, too bulky. Year 2 was
I think he
thinner.
looks less bulky in this figure than he does in his 3 Jokers form.
So Nightwing isn't quite standing up vertically, but you can see just how size difference.
I mean, Batman should be bigger than Nightwing, but he is pretty large. Again,
it depends on the artist, but for decades he was
then,
thin. He was ripped, but
yeah, thinner.
In summary,
buyer beware. Know that you're not getting something exactly like the picture shows, and know that you're in for a struggle when it comes to this thing. I wish this thing worked. I wish so much that it did. And if anyone else can figure out or show me detailed instructions on how to make it work, I'm all ears. But again, I'm saying you can't do that because you're lying. It doesn't work.
The best part of it, I'm saying, is the stand.
Yeah. Like, this is cool. You can stand Batman right on this. That looks good. That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fine with that. You could have him just kneel down, whatever. Although all these other crates are kind of... Oh, see? There. Yep. Yeah. I guess like and subscribe.
I'd love to hear your comments.
Yeah. With
if
anyone
you got
else, if you got this figure, let us know what you think, because
your experience.
I have seen nothing but bicep snaps and people making fun of this horrible thing. And,
it is huge. It's way
But
too
this
big.
is cool, so if you want to spend $50, this is really nice. And you get a cool blue cape, which I guess you could maybe use for someone else if you can figure out how to get it off of this guy. Yeah, and also with all the pegs everywhere, like, good luck trying to... Yeah. And there you go. So if you have him do exactly what he's not supposed to do, then it works great.
And that's been it.
Yep. So we got new reviews on Wednesday. We got other videos every other day of the week, except for 2 of them.
It's a fan.
Oh.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching. We will see you next time. I will edit that somehow.
Good luck.